So hello, everybody. First of all, I want to say that I really like Jill's presentation. Funny thing is, even before she mentioned that she wanted to be a teacher, I was thinking that she explained things so well and has such passion that she really should be a teacher. But that means that she has multiple career paths she can choose from. So that's great. So today I'm going to be talking about know your audience. So a lot of people know this by different names, but ultimately is when you are presenting, you want to tailor, you want to be able to present to who you're talking to. And I know that this is a really simple concept, and and a lot of people would think, oh, I know this already, I do this already. But if you already do this, then that's great. If you don't already do this, hopefully this presentation will kind of give you the severity in what the outcome could be, that in the future you will do this for every single slide, every single presentation that you do. So first of all, I am a genetic engineer at heart. I started off in Genentech, in Celera, which some of you may know as one of the first companies that sequenced the human genome. And back then, it was a really big deal, really expensive deal. And it's one of my passions. But today I'm talking about my other passion, which is communication. So I was lucky to have been part of Roche, Novartis, and Edward for a long time. And they have a focus that combines kind of marketing communication with sales. So there's a lot of training on the topic of how do you communicate to the audience to make sure that you get what you want and the audience gets what they want. So out of my 16 years at these companies, I've kind of adopted this evidence-based marketing. So in life science, this would be something that's more medically proven, having a lot of data to prove the efficacy of the drug or the product that you're marketing. In data science, it would be the product that you're trying to market to the world. And so with my experiences, I've basically combined the technical with the storytelling. And later on, you'll see why this is so important in how to accurately present what you want to get across. So you see here that what is the point of doing a presentation, right? One of the audience for Dilbert, he says, I hope you won't mind my bringing my pillow to your presentation. The last time you presented, I lost consciousness and broke my nose on the table. And you see that while he's presenting, everybody's falling asleep. So the question here is, one, why is he even presenting, right? And hopefully none of you have seen this in your presentations or in presentations that you've been to. If there is this situation, then hopefully the presentation today will help you avoid this in the future. When you Google what a presentation's goal is, or this may be the boiled down version of what a presentation should do, right? On Google, you'll see that there's two purposes to a presentation. One is to inform, and the other is to persuade. So in my mind, they're actually very similar. There's actually only one purpose, which is to persuade. If you look at inform, right? So the best example is probably a professor, right? Talking in front of audience of students. And the professor, most professors in large colleges, they're talking and there's really no feedback, right? I mean, sometimes students ask questions, but most of the time it's just the professor talking. And so you think that this is like the most obvious version of inform. But what I'm here to say is that it's not, because the professor wants to get something out of the class as well. If you think back on a lot of your college career or your experience, the best professors are the ones that are more interactive. They're the ones that think about, how do I engage the audience? How do I engage the students? How do I make sure that they understand or they want to learn more, right? Those are the best professors, the one that drone on and on their, well, this is my job, I have to do this, and therefore I'm going to stand here for an hour and a half to talk about this. Those people end up not being the most favorite professors, right? So inform, don't think of inform as a one-way street. You have to think about what the audience wants from me and be able to deliver that to the audience. So that boils down to a presentation only having one purpose, and that is to persuade, right? Persuade the audience to do something, right? To study harder, to get a PhD. You want to persuade the audience to invest in your company. You want to invest, there's the presentation has a goal of you want the audience to do something, right? And so in order for them to do that, you need to think of a presentation as more of a mutual relationship, of a partnership, right? What is their interest? What is your interest, right? And what does the result look like for them? And what does the result look like for you, right? For an investor conference, the investor wants to invest their money, right? They want to invest in something. And if they're already talking to you, it means that they are very interested in what you have to offer, right? So from your perspective is, how do I let them know that you have the best product that fits their need, right? So it's a mutual relationship, and the trick is how to get to that point where they understand you and you understand them. So the big item I want to share here is you want to tailor your slide to each of the stakeholders that you're talking to. So you could have different type of people that you're talking to. It could be a mixture within the audience, but what you want to do is you never want to have the same presentation to each one of these stakeholders. So let me give you an example. You could be trying to share the quarterly earnings, right? When you're presenting to an investor, right, you want to be talking about how by investing in your company, in the future, you can generate additional growth, you can generate revenue, you have this surprise up your sleeve that nobody else knows about, and something like that, so that you can grab the investor's interest so that they'll put money in your company. If you're doing the same thing in internal setting, like in a town hall or a quarterly review, you will be talking about how well everybody did, how, like bring up the morale, right? About how the company is doing well in this segment, and therefore we should be investing more into those segments. So it's a very different kind of, it's the same data coming out of the quarterly results, sorry, but ultimately you want to present a different message to each of these stakeholders. So what do you think about, right? You try to understand what the audience currently knows, and you want to know how do we get to the right side, right? How do we get to the part where they go, oh, as an employee, I now know what the company wants to do. And so I can focus my time next quarter on how to achieve those goals, right? How do I readjust my goals? How do I make sure that I collaborate with the right teams? And so you, as a presenter, should look at who your audience are, create the strategy or the messaging that you want to convey to that segment of your stakeholders. Have the message be very clear and have it be concise so that there's no ambiguity. And then at the end, make sure that the audience knows what you're trying to do, right? So that there's always a conclusion where at the end of the day, the CEO in the town hall goes, we had this great quarter, keep up the good job, good work, and let's move forward, right? So you want to make sure that you're able to communicate that, take questions, and answer those. So this also means that you have to know what you want, right? So I said that this was a two-way street. What is the takeaway, right? What do I want my audience to know what I want, right? So for investor conference, I want this much investment in order to be able to achieve this project, right? So the investor should know, okay, so he wants to do this project has this much potential, and therefore it is worth my investment, right? And always make sure that when you have these kind of presentations, that you understand what the next steps are, right? The next step, could be the investor doing analysis and then coming back and telling you yes or no. It could be, well, we want to understand this a little bit more because I think this has a lot of potential that you didn't really cover, or something like that. But always know what the next steps are. And your presentation could lead to that, right? Your presentation could be like a chess piece where you move this piece knowing that they're going to react in this way, and therefore you're planning out your future. Really is a really easy concept I mentioned before. Hopefully you've been doing it, but in order to demonstrate, and they always said that the best demonstration, best examples are the ones that are too extreme. And so I'm going to use the extreme example here so that we can all learn from it. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the Space Shuttle Columbia that exploded in while re-entering into Earth. I hope most people know about this disaster. It's really sad. It happened in 2003, beginning of 2003. Any questions so far? Ari? Okay.
Nothing's come through, Jerry. You're all set.
Okay, cool.
Actually, no, before you start this, I did have a question. Okay. You talked about stakeholders, and you talked about tailoring your presentation to different stakeholders. And what if you have multiple stakeholders that are going to be there? How do you manage to juggle that?
Okay, so most of the time when I do that, first of all, if you have stakeholders that require you to have contradictory or confusing messages, they shouldn't be in the same meeting. So that's first, you have to control who comes to the audience. The second part is that if they are of a team, like for example, there's a marketing person that has marketing interests, there's a HR person that has very cost-conscious reasons to be there, you want to be able to address both of those. So, you want to basically talk to one and then the other and make sure that both of them receive what you want them to know. The goal is the communication part, right? I want them to know this so that they know how to react so that I can get to my goal of either collaboration or something of that sort.
Cool, thank you.
Just to give a little background, this happened in 2003. And so the space shuttle took off, and during launch, a piece of Sophie, which is spray-on insulation, spray-on foam, it broke off of the rocket and hit the left wing of the spaceship. So the spaceship completed its trajectory into orbit, and everything was fine. They were doing their experiments and things like that. It was, I think, a 60-day trip. And so during that time, ground control was trying to figure out, so this Sophie fell off, it hit the left wing. Is it dangerous for the crew? Or is it, just minor damage and we will be able to fix it once it lands on Earth? So they could not figure out through the video and surveillance that they've been able to capture. And so they brought in the Boeing engineers that built the shuttle and have them give NASA an analysis of what they found or what the potential damage is. Now, the next part is a actual slide. So this is not a recreation. This is an actual slide that was presented to NASA. This is what Boeing came and presented in front of NASA. There was, I believe, 28 slides, and this was the slide that was supposed to give them their overview of what they thought. No one understood this, right? You look at the header and it says conservative for tau penetration. Okay, so chances are it's not that serious, right? So they did these experiments, and they, in a control environment, they believed that they overcorrected, so it made a bigger Sophie that impacted the thing, and it looked like and the conclusion is, but the flight condition is outside the test database. So the Boeing engineers, they left the place thinking, oh, okay, NASA understands that there are risks. We've already, we presented to them the data, what may happen, what may not happen, and everything. And so we're in good hands. NASA is very smart, they're very capable, and they'll make the right decisions. And NASA saw, okay, so everything is conservative, it looks like nothing is wrong, so let's go ahead with re-entry. So they attempted re-entry, and on February 1st, unfortunately, the shuttle exploded and while re-entering atmosphere. And everybody was shocked because I thought Boeing said that everything was fine. So if we look back on this data, right? So it's conservative with tile damage, and in small print here, test results do show that there is a possibility that a sufficient that Sophie that fell off is of sufficient mass and velocity, right? That it could do damage. But this was hidden in small print with 100 words on the page, right? And so, what did we talk about earlier? When you walk away, you want to talk about next steps, right? You want to make sure that what you want to convey to the audience, you convey. And from Boeing's perspective, they wanted to convey that there is danger, right? It shows that if the Sophie was big enough, that it could cause danger. But they didn't really figure out whether NASA understood that, right? They just walked away. And so it's very important, right? Importance of targeted communication. You're talking to NASA, your multi-billion-dollar project or event of bringing the shuttle back. You want to make sure that the audience knows what's at stake. Okay. Kind of a short presentation, I know. It's a very, very important topic. I hope that I have imparted the severity of this topic, because the companies I've worked for actually spent tens of thousands of dollars to teach the employees how to present knowing your audience. Because from sales, and this is even more important in sales and in marketing, is if you don't know your audience, then you're potentially giving the wrong message. So hopefully after this presentation, you won't ask the last part, which is, what, there was content? Because this is actually something that I hope you can benefit you in the future. So there's actually quite a lot of topics that you can talk about, and I could go on and on for hours about how to present, how to make best presentation for a sales call, for a marketing call, and things like that. There's things like, how do you make sure that you are persuasive, right? How do you lay out the presentation so that other people can immediately latch onto the most important points of the slide? There's a lot of things on how to solicit feedback during the presentation and things like that. Now, I very rarely do these online presentations. Most of them are in front of audiences. I've done small audiences and audiences over 1,000 people, and it's great seeing like faces and how they react to certain things. This one is a little bit weirder, where you can't see what other people are thinking. But there's a lot of topics, and I'm very passionate. So if anybody has any interest on something like this, please do reach out to me. You could go through Joseph. You can write to my email down below. But I want to leave this point with you. A product's true value is only realized when stakeholders can communicate clearly. Okay. If you communicate something that you over embellish, they're going to find out later, right? If it's a true partnership, they're going to find out later. How do you get to the true value and be able to move toward making your product the best it can be, is when you clearly communicate between all the shareholders. Okay, that is my presentation. Is there any questions?
Here you go. I got one over the chat for you, Jerry. It says, what tip do you have for presenting to non-technical audiences?
non-technical audience. So that's actually the most, I would say, the simplest. And it boils down to what I was saying earlier about persuasion, right? You understand what you want to get across to the audience, right? They're not technical. For example, maybe a CEO or CMO of the company, they want to know what your analytics department is producing right now, right? So you can talk about all these bunch of data spaces, analytical tools you're creating, about all these bunch of stuff. But what they want to know is, okay, what does your tool do for the company, right? What do you do for our major product that this analytics product will plug into, right? So oftentimes that's very, very simple, right? And the slide could be, so I would say my favorite boss, he always said, when you present to me, have 10 slides and have like 100 backup slides, right? So the 10 slides is what you want me to know, right? The boiled down version of, is things going well? Are there problems? If there's problem, what are you doing to mitigate them? If you're having trouble, what can I do for you? So those 10 slides are that. The 100 slides in the backup slides is, if I ask you, okay, have you asked about this? Then you bring up the slide. Yes, I've talked to the engineering team and they told me that this and this is the data. Here's the glitch. Here's how much time we need in order to fix it, right? Or something of that sort, right? So 10 slides, 100 slide backup. And that's the point, is the 10 slides, you have to be able to concisely narrow down what you want to get across down to those 10 slides. And this is sometimes hard at first because you have to boil down the knowledge, right? Because you're passionate about all these bunch of things that I've done over the last 3 months, but it boils down to one goal, which is, how have I improved this process?
Okay. Thanks, Jerry. This was, as always, listening to you is just, it's amazing. So thank you. I learn a lot every single time.
Thank you.
I want to thank you all for coming. Again, please feel free to reach out to all of us. Let us know if you have any questions, or if there's any follow-up, if any of the speakers, we can connect you with them. And hopefully we'll see you at one of our other events. So have a great weekend, everyone.